Part 1, The End of War. The sky was a bruised canvas, stained with ash and streaked with the fading embers of a dying sun. Beneath it, the land lay broken, scorched earth stretching endlessly, littered with the remnants of a war long ended but never forgotten. The cries of battle had been silenced, replaced only by the whisper of the wind weaving through shattered ruins and skeletal trees. On the edge of a vast, desolate battlefield, a lone figure stirred. His armor, once gleaming with the proud insignia of the Fire Dynasty, was now dulled and scarred by flame and blood. The young samurai's eyes fluttered open, reflecting a horizon painted with ruin and sorrow. Kage. The last. His breath came ragged, each inhale a reminder of the life clinging stubbornly within him. Around him, the fallen lay motionless, brothers and foes alike, their war ended by mutual destruction. No victor would claim this land. Only silence reigned. Yet in the stillness, a pulse stirred within Kage's chest, a fragile ember of purpose glowing against the cold void of despair. Somewhere beyond this desolation, beyond the ruin of empires, destiny waited. The heavens, it seemed, had not forgotten him. A sudden wind rose, carrying with it a whisper, a voice half heard and half imagined, speaking in a language old as time. The voice called him, promising a path beyond death, beyond vengeance, beyond the endless cycle of bloodshed. With effort, Kage arose to his feet, gripping the worn hilt of his katana, his fingers trembling but resolute. The world around him might be lost, but the spirit within was not yet broken. This was the end of war, but the beginning of a new journey. Kage's memories flickered like dying flames, flashes of thunderous clashes, roaring battle cries, and the bitter scent of blood mingling with smoke. The Fire Dynasty's crimson banners had flown high once, defiant against the advancing shadows of the Shadow Federation. But in the end, the two great empires had devoured themselves, consumed by their endless hunger for power. Now, only silence remained. He stepped forward slowly, each movement heavy with exhaustion and pain. The ground beneath him was uneven, cracked like a broken mirror reflecting the shattered world. Scattered around were discarded weapons, broken shields, and the shattered dreams of millions. The air was thick with the weight of death, but also with an eerie calm, as if the land itself was holding its breath. Kage's gaze turned toward the horizon, where a faint glow shimmered, the last embers of twilight or perhaps something more. A faint hope. Suddenly, the wind carried a voice, not spoken in words but felt deep inside his soul, like an ancient echo awakening from a long slumber. It was a call, a summons from the gods or spirits who still lingered in this dying world. Balance must be restored, the voice whispered. Kage closed his eyes, drawing on the remnants of his samurai training, grounding himself in the present. The path ahead was uncertain and dangerous. The old ways were fading, but the new era demanded a new kind of warrior, one who could wield not only the blade but also the spirit. With a steady breath, he tightened his grip on his katana, a blade that had tasted the blood of countless foes and comrades alike. But this was no longer a weapon of destruction. It was to be a symbol of rebirth. The world had ended with fire and shadow, but from its ashes, something new must rise. Kage knelt on the cracked earth, pressing his palm to the ground as if to draw strength from the dying soil. The land beneath him was scarred, but still pulsed faintly with life, stubborn life, refusing to yield to the dark. Memories flooded back, sharp and bitter. The final battle, the clash of steel and sorcery beneath blood-red skies. The Fire Dynasty's last charge against the endless tide of shadows summoned by the Federation's dark mages. He could still hear the screams, not just of men, but of spirits torn apart, of dreams shattered. He wiped the grime and blood from his face, revealing eyes hardened by broken world. Whispers spoke of curses, of restless spirits, and creatures twisted by dark magic. His journey would not only test his skill with the blade but the strength of his soul. He glanced down at the shard again. It pulsed, steady as a heartbeat, a compass leading him forward. Then let it be, Kage whispered. I will walk this path. For honor. For balance. For the future. The wolf rose, stretching lively, and together they moved deeper into the night, two survivors bound by fate, stepping into a world where the past's shadows still hunted. Dawn threatened the horizon with a pale, uncertain light. The cold seeped into Kage's bones as he and the wolf traversed the ruined plains. Every step stirred ashes, memories of fire and death that clung stubbornly to the earth. The samurai's thoughts circled relentlessly, the price of war, the endless cycle of destruction. What was left for a warrior when the enemy was gone? In the silence, a distant melody surfaced, faint and haunting, the wind weaving through broken bamboo groves, carrying echoes of forgotten prayers. Kage's grip on his katana tightened. This was no ordinary wasteland. Magic still lingered, raw and dangerous, like a sleeping beast barely restrained. He glanced down at the shard, now glowing brighter as if sensing the coming dawn. Ahead, jagged mountains pierced the sky, the realm of the Dragon Temple. Somewhere beyond those peaks lay the next step in his journey. With renewed purpose, Kage pushed forward, the wolf padding silently beside him, a guardian of the lost, a witness to the last samurai's vow. The road ahead was long, fraught with shadows both within and without. But from the ashes of war, a new legend would rise. Kage paused at the edge of a shallow ravine where wildflowers stubbornly bloomed despite the scars of war. Their delicate petals shimmered with morning dew, fragile yet defiantly alive. He knelt and traced a finger through the blossoms, marveling at life's persistence. Even in ruin, he murmured, hope finds a way. The shard warmed in his hand, its glow steady now, like a heartbeat syncing with the earth's own rhythm. The god's message was clear, balance must be restored, but not by force alone. The samurai's mind wandered to the countless warriors who had fallen, friends, enemies, and innocents caught in the merciless storm. Their spirits whispered in the wind, urging him onward. His path would be lonely, perilous. But he was not afraid. From the shadowed forests beyond, a chorus of distant cries rose, wildlife returning, spirits stirring, a world waking from its nightmare. Kage stood, planting his katana firmly in the soil, a silent vow etched in steel and spirit. I am the last flame, he said, voice steady, and I will carry the light forward. With the wolf by his side, the last samurai began his pilgrimage toward the Dragon Temple, where fate awaited beyond the veil of ash and shadow. The age of war was over. The age of balance had begun. Part 2, Prophecy from Ashes. The first light of dawn barely touched the scorched earth as Kage and his silent companion advanced toward the distant mountains. The air was thick with the scent of smoke and a strange electric tension, as if the world itself held its breath. In the quiet moments between footsteps, Kage's mind drifted back to the vision that had come to him in restless sleep, a swirling tempest of ash and fire, voices whispered from beyond, and a voice clear as crystal cutting through the chaos. From the ashes, a seed shall grow. The balance shall be born where fire meets shadow. Seek the path through the forgotten ruins, for there lies the future. He had awoken clutching the shard tightly, its light pulsing in time with his heartbeat, a tangible fragment of the prophecy. The path ahead was unknown, fraught with perils both mortal and supernatural. But the prophecy was a beacon, guiding him toward the Dragon Temple, and perhaps beyond, toward the fragile hope of a new era. The wolf paused, ears pricked, sensing something unseen. Kage's gaze followed, and in the distance, amidst the ruins of a shattered village, faint glimmers of movement flickered like restless spirits. He tightened his grip on his katana. The past was not yet done with him, and the darkness still watched, waiting for a chance to reclaim the world. But Kage was no longer just a warrior of war. He was the bearer of a sacred mission, to forge balance from chaos, to become the bridge between light and shadow. His journey had truly begun. As Kage approached the ruins, the air grew colder, heavy with an unnatural stillness. The skeletal remains of houses stood like sentinels, blackened timbers clawing at the gray sky. The scent of ash mingled with something fouler, a whisper of dark magic long dormant but not yet extinguished. The wolf growled low, hackles rising. Kage's hand moved instinctively to the katana's hilt, muscles coiled and ready. Suddenly, shadows shifted, not cast by the sun or moon, but by an unseen force. Flickers of dark figures danced at the edge of perception, shapes half seen yet fully threatening. From the heart of the ruins emerged a figure, cloaked in ragged robes, eyes glowing with eerie light. A survivor? A spirit? Or something worse? Kage, the voice rasped, as if carried on the wind itself. You carry the shard of destiny, but destiny is a blade double-edged. Will you wield it for balance? Or destruction? Kage stepped forward, steady despite the chill crawling down his spine. I seek the path to the Dragon Temple. My purpose is to restore what was broken. The figure laughed, a sound like dry leaves skittering across tombstones. Purpose is but a shadow, young samurai. The past clings tight, and the future is written in blood. Before Kage could respond, the figure vanished, leaving behind a faint trace of cold that seemed to seep into the very ground. The wolf snarled, stepping protectively beside him. The ruins whispered secrets and warnings, the first true test of his quest had begun. Kage knew then that the prophecy was no mere vision, but a summons to face the darkness still festering in the world's wounded heart. Kage lowered his gaze to the shard, now glowing softly like a dying star. The weight of the prophecy pressed heavily upon him, an invisible chain tethering him to a fate not entirely his own. The ruins around him seemed to pulse with latent energy, shadows flickering at the edges of his vision. This place, once a vibrant village, was now a crucible of forgotten sorrows and restless spirits. The wolf's low growl was a reminder that even in this silence, danger lurked. Drawing a steady breath, Kage whispered, I will not be swallowed by shadow. I will carve a path through darkness and light alike. A sudden gust swept through the ruins, stirring dust and ash into a swirling dance. Within the vortex, faint shapes emerged, faces twisted in agony, whispers of lost souls seeking release. Kage's hand tightened on his katana. His journey would demand more than skill with the blade, it would require strength of spirit, courage to face not just enemies but the ghosts of a broken world. Ahead, the faint silhouette of an ancient stone archway marked the entrance to the forgotten temple path, the first step toward the Dragon Temple and the hope it held. With the wolf at his side, Kage stepped forward into the mist, ready to embrace the prophecy and all the trials it would bring. The mist curled thickly around Kage's feet as he crossed beneath the ancient stone archway, its surface etched with faded runes glowing faintly in the dim light. The air here was heavy with magic, old, powerful, and restless. Each step echoed softly against crumbling walls, the silence broken only by the distant drip of water and the soft padding of the wolf's footsteps. Kage's eyes scanned the shadows, alert to the slightest movement. The prophecy's words echoed in his mind, balance born where fire meets shadow, but the path to that balance was hidden behind layers of secrets and danger. Suddenly, a faint glow flickered ahead, revealing a mosaic on the floor, a great dragon coiled around a sun and moon, its scales shimmering with embedded crystals. The shard pulsed in response, resonating with the ancient magic beneath the stones. Kage knelt, tracing the mosaic's intricate patterns with careful fingers. This temple had once been a place of peace and power, a sanctuary where the dragon spirit was said to guard the harmony of the world. But centuries of war had shattered it, leaving only echoes and shadows. A soft rustle made him spin, katana raised. From the darkness stepped a figure, a young woman, her eyes reflecting the flicker of torchlight, her stance cautious yet unyielding. You're far from the battlefields, samurai, she said, voice steady but edged with wary respect. Few dare walk the forgotten paths. Kage lowered his blade slightly, sensing a kindred spirit beneath her guarded exterior. I seek to restore what was lost. To bring balance. The woman nodded, a shadow of a smile touching her lips. Then we walk the same path. But beware, not all who seek balance are friend, and the temple guards its secrets jealously. Together, they stepped deeper into the temple's heart, into the realm where prophecy and fate would soon collide. The woman's eyes gleamed in the flickering torchlight, sharp and resolute. She moved with the fluid grace of one accustomed to danger, her hand never straying far from the curved dagger at her waist. "I am Amaya," she said softly, "a guardian of the old ways and a seeker of truth. The Dragon Temple holds power that can tip the scales, but it also holds curses that devour the unwary." Kage studied her carefully, sensing both strength and sorrow beneath her calm exterior. Trust was a rare commodity in this broken world, but fate had woven their paths together for a reason. "We all carry burdens," Kage replied. "I carry the last flame of a fallen empire. I seek to rebuild, not with fire, but with balance." Amaya nodded, her gaze flickering to the glowing shard in Kage's hand. "That shard is a fragment of the temple's heart, but beware, its light can attract darkness as easily as it can guide." As they moved deeper into the temple's shadowed halls, the air thickened with ancient magic. Murals depicting dragons entwined with the sun and moon adorned the crumbling walls, telling stories of harmony and conflict intertwined through time. Suddenly, a chill swept through the corridor, and flickering shadows coalesced into shapes, guardians of stone and spirit, awakened by their presence. "Prepare yourself," Amaya warned, drawing her dagger. "The temple tests all who enter." Kage tightened his grip on his katana, stepping forward with the calm resolve of a warrior who had faced death and emerged determined to shape a new destiny. The dance of light and shadow had begun. The stone guardians stirred with grinding echoes, their eyes igniting with fiery light. Towering and relentless, they advanced with measured steps, each footfall shaking the ancient temple fl. Ur. Kage's heart steadied as he met their gaze. These were no ordinary foes, but spirits bound by duty to protect the temple's secrets. Amaya moved swiftly, her dagger flashing in the dim light, slicing through ethereal limbs that flickered like smoke. Kage drew his katana, the blade humming softly with the shard's power. With each strike, sparks danced as steel met enchanted stone. Their movements synchronized, Amaya's agility weaving around Kage's powerful, precise blows. Together, they fought not just for survival, but to honor the temple's legacy. The guardians howled in frustration, their forms flickering but unyielding. Yet with every strike, the light in the shard grew stronger, pushing back the shadows that sought to consume them. Finally, with a decisive blow, Kage shattered the last guardian, its form crumbling into dust that shimmered briefly before fading. Breathing heavily, the two warriors stood amidst the silence, the temple's ancient power now humming warmly through the air. Amaya glanced at Kage, a rare smile breaking through her stern expression. "The temple recognizes you," she said quietly. "The prophecy is real, and so is your role in what comes next." Kage nodded, determination burning brighter than ever. "This is only the beginning." As the dust settled, a soft hum echoed through the chamber, resonating from the shattered remains of the guardians. The glowing shard in Kage's palm pulsed with renewed intensity, casting flickering light across the ancient carvings etched into the temple walls. Amaya stepped closer, her eyes reflecting the shard's glow. "This temple is a nexus, a place where the threads of fate intertwine. Your shard is a key, but it unlocks more than doors. It awakens old powers, some benevolent, others dangerous." Kage's gaze hardened. "Then we must be ready for whatever comes. Balance is fragile. If darkness seeks to tip the scales, I will stand against it." Amaya nodded, her voice softening. "You are not alone in this. The path is treacherous, but together, we might succeed where others have failed." She reached into a satchel and pulled out a scroll, its surface inscribed with ancient symbols. "This map shows the way to the Dragon Temple's heart. Few have returned from there." Kage took the scroll, feeling the weight of countless lost souls in the fragile parchment. "Then we move forward, for the fallen, for the future." Outside, the wind whispered through broken trees, carrying the faint sound of distant thunder. A storm was coming, not just of nature, but of fate itself. Together, they prepared to journey deeper into the temple's mysteries, where prophecy and destiny awaited their reckoning. The heavy air of the temple corridors seemed to thicken as Kage and Amaya pressed forward, the flickering torchlight casting long shadows on crumbling stone walls. The scroll's cryptic markings hinted at hidden passages and ancient traps, remnants of a time when the temple was a sanctuary for powerful guardians. Each step echoed with the weight of history and the promise of revelation. The silence was punctuated only by the distant drip of water and the faint hum of arcane energy lingering in the air. Kage's hand rested lightly on the hilt of his katana, senses sharpened by years of battle and now attuned to the subtle magic woven through the temple's stones. Amaya paused, her eyes narrowing as she listened. "We are not alone," she whispered. From the darkness ahead came a low, resonant chant, voices weaving together in an ancient tongue, rising and falling like the tide. The temple was awakening. Kage steeled himself, feeling the shard's light grow brighter, illuminating the path through encroaching shadows. The prophecy was no longer a distant promise, it was unfolding with every breath. "We walk the edge of fate," he said quietly. "And there is no turning back." Together, they stepped into the heart of the temple, where secrets and dangers awaited in equal measure. Part 3, The Dragon Temple. The Dragon Temple loomed before Kage and Amaya like a forgotten titan, carved from ancient stone and woven with the threads of lost magic. Its towering walls, shrouded in moss and shadow, bore intricate sigils of dragons entwined with the sun and moon, symbols of balance and harmony that had long faded from a world shattered by war. The air was thick with a palpable energy, as if the temple itself breathed with the weight of centuries. Kage stepped forward cautiously, the shard in his palm pulsing softly in response to the temple's presence. Every step echoed through the silent halls, carrying the heavy weight of history and the silent hopes of a world yearning for renewal. Amaya moved beside him with practiced grace, her eyes sharp and alert, reading the ancient runes and wards that still guarded the sacred place. As they ventured deeper, the walls seemed to shift, shadows flickering at the edges of perception, whispers curling through the air like smoke. The temple was alive, a sanctuary and a prison, harboring both light and darkness. They came upon a grand chamber, its ceiling lost in darkness, walls adorned with faded murals depicting dragons soaring between realms of fire and shadow. In the center stood the dragon's heart, a massive crystal pulsing with raw energy, its surface swirling with flames and mist. The shard in Kage's hand blazed to life, resonating with the temple's core. Suddenly, visions flooded Kage's mind, memories of the fallen empire, the carnage he had witnessed, and the heavy burden of choice. The spirits of those lost cried out, pleading for peace and balance. A voice echoed, ancient and commanding, "Will you rise to shape a new destiny, or fall beneath the weight of despair?" Kage's grip tightened around his katana as he stepped forward, accepting the temple's challenge. Pain and clarity surged through him, fusing his spirit with the blade. The temple's blessing awakened within him, a bond of soul and steel, a power beyond mere weaponry. Breathing heavily, he turned to Amaya, who nodded solemnly. "The path ahead is fraught with peril. But with this bond, you carry the hope of a world that can still be saved." Together, they prepared to leave the temple's embrace, knowing that beyond its walls lay lands torn by conflict, where magic and humanity clashed in a fragile, dangerous dance. The journey toward restoring balance was just beginning, and Kage's soulbound blade would be both beacon and burden on the road ahead. As they retraced their steps, the temple's eerie silence shifted, growing heavier, charged with unseen eyes. The shards of old magic hummed louder, vibrating through the stone. Shadows lengthened and deepened, coalescing at the edges of their vision. "We are not alone," Amaya whispered, hands steady on the hilt of her dagger. Kage's eyes narrowed, blade ready. From the darkness, spectral guardians emerged, ethereal warriors clad in ancient armor, their faces hidden behind helms crowned with dragon motifs. They were the temple's protectors, spirits bound to defend the sacred heart from all who sought it. Without hesitation, Kage engaged. Steel met ghostly steel in a clash that rang through the cavernous hall. Each strike sent ripples through the shimmering forms of the guardians, yet they pressed on relentlessly. Amaya's dagger flickered with a pale blue light as she wove old spells, disrupting the spirit's hold on the physical realm. Her voice chanted in a forgotten language, summoning protective wards around them. Despite their combined strength, the battle was exhausting. The guardians knew every move, every weakness. Kage's blade glowed brighter, fed by the dragon heart's blessing, slicing through the spectral forms with righteous fury. Finally, the last guardian shattered into motes of light, dissolving into the ether. Silence reclaimed the temple, but Kage and Amaya knew this was only a prelude. Panting, Kage sheathed his katana. "The temple tests those who seek its power," he said. "But the true challenge lies beyond." Amaya nodded, eyes fierce with determination. "There are forces gathering. Remnants of the Shadow Federation will not allow balance to rise without a fight." Outside, the sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the mountain path. Their next destination awaited, a village scarred by war and fear, yet still clutching at the fragile threads of hope. Kage flexed his fingers, feeling the pulse of the soulbound blade. The power was intoxicating, but also demanding. It demanded honor, sacrifice, and unwavering resolve. As they stepped into the dying light, Kage felt the weight of a world poised between ruin and renewal. The Dragon Temple had marked the beginning of a new chapter, one written not with blood alone, but with spirit. The journey down the mountain was perilous. Cracked paths threatened to give way, twisted roots clawed at their feet, and unseen eyes watched from shadowed trees. Night brought a cold so sharp it bit through their cloaks, and strange sounds whispered on the wind. Amaya spoke softly of the temple's lore, how the Dragon Temple was once the heart of an empire where magic and samurai lived in harmony, how it had been betrayed and fallen into shadow, how only one bound by spirit and steel could reclaim its legacy. Kage listened, each word settling deep within. The shard in his hand felt like a living thing, pulsating in sync with his heartbeat, a reminder that he carried not only a weapon but a promise. Hours later, as dawn crept over the horizon, they glimpsed smoke rising in the distance, the first sign of human life since the war's end. The village lay nestled in a valley, its wooden homes battered but standing. Smoke curled from chimneys, and the faint sounds of life stirred their hope. Yet as they approached, wary eyes watched from behind shuttered windows. War had taught distrust, and strangers bore the mark of suspicion. Kage stepped forward, his presence calm but commanding. "I am Kage," he announced. "I come bearing the hope of balance and peace." A grizzled man emerged, hand resting on a sword hilt. "Many have come with words and left with broken promises. Why should we believe you?" Amaya stepped beside Kage, voice steady. "Because the temple has spoken. And because the darkness is rising once more." The villagers' faces betrayed the conflict within, fear of more war, but yearning for something more. That night, beneath a blanket of stars, Kage spoke to the village elders. He shared the prophecy, the temple's blessing, and the path ahead. Some listened with hope, others with skepticism. But all felt the tremors of change stirring beneath their feet. In the following days, Kage and Amaya helped fortify the village. They trained villagers in defense, healed wounds with herbal remedies and old magic, and shared stories that rekindled courage. But the darkness was never far. Strange shadows prowled the forests, unnatural storms brewed without warning, and whispers haunted the night. One evening, as Kage walked the village perimeter, a chilling wind carried a voice, cold and mocking. "The balance you seek will be your undoing." He turned sharply, katana drawn, but saw only shifting shadows. The war was not yet over. The Shadow Federation's remnants lurked, twisting magic to their will, seeking to snuff out the fragile light Kage carried. Kage clenched his jaw, resolve hardening. The soulbound blade was more than a weapon, it was a symbol. And he would protect it, and the hope it represented, with every breath. Days turned into weeks. Bonds formed between Kage, Amaya, and the villagers. Trust grew, fragile but real. Children laughed again, farmers tilled the land, and the village stood as a beacon in the desolation. But the storm whispered warnings. Portents of greater darkness approached, and the balance hung by a thread. One night, as a blood-red moon rose, figures cloaked in shadow breached the village outskirts. A fierce battle erupted, steel against dark sorcery, light against shadow. Kage's katana blazed as he fought, each strike fueled by the temple's blessing and his unyielding spirit. Amaya's spells danced in the air, weaving protective shields and searing blasts of energy. Though outnumbered, the villagers rallied, their courage kindled by Kage's leadership. When the last shadow fled into the night, the village was battered but unbroken. Kage stood amid the aftermath, breath heavy, eyes burning with determination. "This is only the beginning," he said. "We will stand, not just to survive, but to reclaim our world." The path ahead was long and fraught with peril, but for the first time in years, hope burned bright. And in his hand, the soulbound blade pulsed, a heartbeat echoing the promise of a new dawn. Part 4, The Soulbound Blade. The crimson hues of dawn bled over the horizon as Kage stood at the village's edge, the soulbound blade resting lightly in his grasp. The weapon thrummed with a quiet but relentless power, a living extension of his spirit, yet it was also a constant reminder of the path he had chosen, one littered with sacrifice and shadow. The blessing of the Dragon Temple had bound the blade to his very soul, and with it came a weight heavier than any armor. Amaya appeared beside him, her eyes sharp beneath furrowed brows, scanning the quiet forest that bordered the village. "The blade's power is growing," she said softly, voice threaded with both awe and concern. "But so is the darkness that hunts it." Kage nodded, feeling the pulse in his palms sync with his heartbeat. "The Shadow Federation will not rest until they have claimed it. Or destroyed it." The village behind them stirred awake, unaware of the storm that approached beyond the tree-line. For now, peace reigned, fragile and fleeting. Inside the modest hall where village elders gathered, the air was thick with unease. Flickering candlelight cast long shadows across weathered faces marked by hardship and hope. "We must prepare," Kage told them, his voice steady but urgent. "The blade's power can protect, but it also draws those who hunger for control." One elder, an aged man named Hashin, leaned forward, eyes glittering with a mixture of respect and skepticism. "We are but farmers and hunters, samurai. How can we stand against sorcery and shadow?" Amaya stepped forward, her hands folding gracefully. "With unity and will. The Dragon Temple's blessing is more than a weapon, it is a symbol. Together, we can rekindle the light in this broken world." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room, though doubt still lingered in many hearts. The days that followed were a blur of training and vigilance. Kage taught the villagers how to wield blades and bows with renewed purpose, instilling discipline honed through years of battle. Amaya shared ancient chants and protective wards, binding the village in magic old as the mountains. Yet, as the soulbound blade's light grew, so did the whispers carried by the wind, tendrils of darkness that seeped from the remnants of the Shadow Federation. One evening, beneath a moon cloaked in storm clouds, Kage sensed a presence lurking just beyond the trees. He moved silently, katana drawn, every muscle taut with anticipation. A figure emerged from the shadows, cloaked, masked, but unmistakably a sorcerer of the Federation. The air crackled as dark energy coiled around the intruder's hands like living smoke. "You carry a blade not meant for this age," the sorcerer hissed. "Give it to us, and perhaps your death will be swift." Kage's grip tightened. "This blade is bound to my soul and the hope of balance. I will not yield." The sorcerer's laugh was cold and bitter. "Then you will fall." The duel that followed was a clash of steel and shadow. Kage's katana blazed with ethereal fire, cutting through curses and dark wards. Each strike was met with a counter of twisting magic, the air alive with crackling energy. Amaya appeared beside Kage, chanting spells that flared like lightning, disrupting the sorcerer's concentration. The battle wove through the village outskirts, shadows flickering like restless spirits. Sweat and blood mixed as Kage pressed the attack, his soulbound blade humming with the strength of the Dragon Temple. Finally, with a decisive strike, the sorcerer's dark form shattered into ash, carried away by the night wind. Breathing heavily, Kage turned to Amaya. This blade. It demands more than strength. It demands honor, humility. Faith. Amaya nodded solemnly. And the willingness to carry burdens others cannot bear. The victory was bittersweet. The village celebrated their survival, but all knew the shadow war was far from over. The soulbound blade had become a beacon, drawing light and darkness alike. In the days that followed, Kage found himself haunted by dreams. Whispers of ancient dragons, echoes of the temple's fire, and visions of a future yet unwritten. The blade's bond was deepening, intertwining his fate with the land itself. One night, Amaya approached him quietly. The blade is more than a weapon. It is a legacy, a covenant between the living and the spirits of balance. You must understand its history, or risk being consumed. Together, they pored over ancient scrolls and faded murals, unraveling the tale of the Dragon Temple and the soulbound blade, forged in an era when samurai and sorcerers upheld harmony, before betrayal and war shattered their world. Kage listened, absorbing the weight of his burden. The blade was a key to renewal, but only if wielded with a pure heart and steadfast resolve. As weeks turned into months, the village grew stronger. Bonds forged in hardship solidified into unyielding unity. Children learned to respect the blade's legacy, elders whispered prayers to forgotten gods, and Kage stood as both protector and symbol. Yet shadows stirred beyond the horizon. The Federation's remnants conspired, gathering dark forces in secret, plotting to seize the soulbound blade and twist its power for their own ends. One dusk, a messenger arrived, breathless, eyes wide with terror. They march. The Federation's sorcerers and their twisted beasts. Soon, this village will face the full fury of their wrath. Kage's jaw clenched. The time for patience was over. Gathering the villagers, he spoke with unwavering resolve. We will stand. Not just to defend our homes, but to ignite a flame of hope that will spread across this broken world. Part 5, The First Village. The early morning mist clung to the rolling hills like a fragile veil, softening the edges of the shattered world beyond. The village lay nestled in a quiet valley, hemmed in by ancient forests whose twisted branches whispered forgotten secrets. This place was a fragile beacon amid the ruins, a patchwork of wooden homes and worn paths, where weary souls clung stubbornly to hope. Kage and Amaya arrived as the sun broke over the horizon, casting a warm glow on the villagers who gathered cautiously at the outskirts. Faces marked by hardship turned toward the strangers, wary eyes meeting steady gazes. The elders stepped forward, led by a woman named Hannah, her silver-streaked hair framing a face weathered but resolute. She regarded Kage with a mixture of suspicion and silent longing. Who brings the blade of the Dragon Temple to our home? She asked, voice steady. Kage knelt respectfully. I am Kage. I bear a blade bound with the spirit of balance and the hope of renewal. I come not as a conqueror, but as a guardian, to help this village stand against the darkness that threatens us all. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some saw in him the promise of salvation, others feared the return of war. Amaya added softly, we seek not to command, but to unite. The Shadow Federation's shadows stretch far, and only together can we hold the light. The days that followed were marked by cautious alliance. Kage and Amaya worked alongside villagers, tending fields, repairing homes, and sharing stories of resilience and courage. Slowly, walls of suspicion began to crumble, replaced by fragile threads of trust. Kage taught the villagers to wield their tools as weapons, turning farming implements into instruments of defense, training archers to watch the tree lines for signs of danger. Amaya wove protective wards around the village, her chants weaving ancient magic into the very earth. Children gathered around Kage, eyes wide with wonder as he spoke of honor, courage, and the legacy of the Dragon Temple. Elders shared stories of times before the war, of harmony between man and magic. Yet, beneath the surface, an undercurrent of fear pulsed. The shadows had not forgotten this place. One evening, as twilight bled into night, strange phenomena began to stir. Fires flickered without cause, whispers slithered through the trees, and the wind carried voices not of this world. Kage stood watch atop the village walls, katana gleaming faintly in the moonlight. The soulbound blade pulsed softly, attuned to the unease that wrapped around the village like a shroud. Suddenly, a chilling howl shattered the stillness, unnatural, desperate, and full of malice. From the forest's edge emerged twisted creatures, malformed beasts born of corrupted magic, eyes glowing with hunger and hatred. Their snarls echoed the darkness that sought to consume all light. The villagers scrambled to arms, faces pale but determined. Kage's voice rose above the chaos. "Hold your ground. We fight not just for survival, but for the future." The battle was fierce and unforgiving. Kage moved like a storm through the fray, his soulbound blade slicing through shadow and flesh with precision and fury. Each strike released a burst of ethereal flame, a manifestation of the Dragon Temple's blessing. Amaya called upon the ancient chants, weaving shields of light that protected the villagers and seared the twisted beasts. The air crackled with magic and steel, the village's fate hanging in the balance. Despite their ferocity, the dark creatures faltered beneath the combined strength of Kage, Amaya, and the villagers. One by one, the beasts fell, their forms dissolving into wisps of smoke. When silence finally returned, the village stood battered but unbroken. In the quiet that followed, Kage gathered the villagers around the central fire. His voice was steady but filled with the weight of truth. "This attack is but a shadow of what is to come," he said. "The darkness is gathering strength, and our enemies grow desperate." Hana, the elder, nodded solemnly. "We will stand with you, Kage. For our homes, for our children, for the hope you carry." Amaya's gaze swept over the faces illuminated by firelight. Balance is fragile. It requires vigilance, unity, and sacrifice. The village had found its protector and its cause. But the path ahead would test their courage and resolve like never before. Over the coming weeks, Kage worked tirelessly to fortify the village. Palisades were raised, watchtowers built, and alliances forged with nearby settlements. He trained the villagers not only in combat but in the strength of spirit, teaching that true power lay in honor, compassion, and unity. Amaya delved deeper into the ancient magics of the land, seeking knowledge to protect and heal. Together, they explored forgotten ruins nearby, uncovering relics and insights that whispered of a world once whole. Yet, shadows loomed ever closer. Rumors spread of a growing force amassing under a dark banner, a gathering storm that threatened to engulf all. One night, as Kage meditated beneath the stars, a messenger arrived breathless and pale. "The Shadow Federation marches," he gasped. "Their armies grow, and their sorcerers wield terrible magic. They seek the soulbound blade. And the village will be their next prize." Kage arose, the weight of destiny pressing down. "Then we prepare. We will not let darkness claim this land." The village rallied with fierce determination. Fires blazed brighter, swords were sharpened, and hearts steeled for the trials to come. As dawn broke over the hills, Kage stood atop the village walls, the soulbound blade catching the first light. Around him, villagers took their positions, ready to defend all they had rebuilt. Amaya joined him, her presence a steady anchor. "Whatever comes, we face it together." Kage's eyes scanned the horizon, where distant banners rose like dark clouds. The war was far from over, but here, in this first village, hope burned bright. And with that light, they would fight to reclaim their world, one battle, one soul at a time. The days that followed were filled with rigorous preparation. The villagers trained relentlessly, their fear slowly transmuting into fierce resolve. The village became a forge of warriors and guardians, a bastion against the encroaching shadow. Kage and Amaya shared stories of ancient samurai and magic, rekindling a lost pride among the people. Through their leadership, the village's spirit grew strong enough to weather the darkest storms. Amidst the preparation, Kage found moments of quiet reflection. The soulbound blade remained a constant companion, a reminder of the burden he carried and the hope he inspired. One night, as the village slept beneath a tapestry of stars, Kage dreamed of the dragon temple once more. The crystal heart pulsed with light and shadow intertwined, whispering of a destiny not yet fulfilled. He awoke with renewed determination. The path ahead would be perilous, but he was no longer alone. Weeks later, the ominous drums of war echoed across the valley. The Shadow Federation's forces advanced, their ranks swollen with dark sorcery and corrupted beasts. The village stood ready. The final battle was at hand, a crucible of steel, spirit, and sacrifice.